Hey YouTube, welcome to the console room, the room in the house where you can talk about everything and anything. I'm Connell, aka Emperor Kuzco, with my co-host Ventura, aka Mr.Iceshard. Today we're uploading our first of hopefully many videos, nothing too crazy, just a chapter review of Jujutsu Kaisen 127. This is our unedited, unabridged conversation, similar to a podcast format. We have some talking points, but try to let the conversation really drive itself. We're going to be putting out weekly videos in this kind of format, as well as some smaller edits featuring highlights from our conversations. We're also going to be looking to do additional content on games and anime going forward. Hope you enjoy and stay tuned for future content. Thanks. Do some analysis, and then we'll just top it off with, maybe where we think it's going kind of thing. For example, what the hell is her name right now? Kugasaki, is she actually dead?
Yeah, I feel you. Okay, yeah, we can definitely do that. Cause like right now, I ain't gonna lie, man. This cover is like
It's brutal.
yeah, man.
It's actually brutal. It was just why it's funny that you mentioned that because that was the very first thing I was thinking that we should actually talk about.
Yeah, and it is cause like I didn't realize after reading the first time, like, oh shit, these are the people that he killed. Like, well, at least to make yeah.
Well, his presumed victims. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I'm like, I do like the color. I ain't gonna lie, I do like the color of each like.
Of the coloring of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you there.
Does he have a name? I always forget, or do they just call him Patchwork?
Oh my God, he does have a name.
I always.
Itadori yells it in the last
Oh,
chapter.
you're right. And I was.
Let me find it. Because I never remember this guy's name.
I just call him Patchwork guy.
Yeah, I know. Actually, I think it's one chapter back or two chapters back.
I know when they were yelling at each other.
When he's like, and he's like, "Why are you yelling?" How the fuck do I not remember this guy's name? Okay, boom.
I'm gonna cut this part out.
Mahito. Yeah, Mahito.
Oh, Mojito. Okay, got you.
Yeah, Mahito. Yeah.
Ah, sick. But yeah, that's a great like color. Like I'm like, and it's kind of obviously like, that's what he did. And I kind of like they're basically like cursed dolls essentially. Like they look like little dolls.
Well, yeah. Well, that was kind of the interesting thing too, right? Is because like, by the way, are you recording already?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. No, I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, I love it because it's also like Kugasaki does the straw doll techniques, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like ironic that like they're straw dolls of his that got killed, which is kind of funny. So I thought that was funny as well for sure. And yeah, well, I guess it's presumed victims because we don't actually know if Kugasaki's dead, obviously, because
but like,
that's one of the things in this chapter, right? Is the brother comes in of Toto and it's like, hey, I tried to help the girl, but like I don't know if she's actually dead.
yeah. And then the second color page is it's interesting. Who is Toto getting shot by the idol that he likes?
Yeah, because that happened in one of the earlier chapters, right? There was something going on with like a curse technique, and we saw that scene, and it just ended on that chapter. We still don't really have a fill-in, I don't think, for what happened after that, but that's where he got the scar on his eye from, I think, isn't it?
Oh.
It's from that shot, right? Because, yeah.
Oh, but he always had that scar since his introduction, right?
Did he? I don't think so.
I think he did, actually. So I think we'll kind of maybe might get a total backstory.
I'm just kind of, no, it's not going to be far enough back. You know what? Let me just Google that really quickly. Toto Jujutsu. Are you sure he's always had that scar?
I think he had, man.
Has he always really had that scar? Yeah, okay, maybe he has.
Yeah, we just don't know.
Yeah, okay, he's always had that scar. Why is that gunshot there then? Because that looks like it could definitely be
It could have glazed,
the reason for that scar, right?
It could have grazed him, and it's a girl too. So I'm like, was that?
It looks like the idol, yeah. So maybe they were like posing as something to do with like.
It
or
could
maybe
be
that's how he originally got it.
either that, or it could be a fake memory how he makes up.
Oh, that's very true. So like he got into a fight, an imaginary fight with the idol, and like.
Yeah, but in reality, he probably got into a fight with some like spirit, a curse.
Cursed beast.
Yeah.
Yeah, like cursed thing. Yeah, that's very possible. Actually, that's really funny. I hadn't even thought about that. That's a good point. So yeah, man, and then I guess going on to the first couple pages, it's kind of crazy, dude, because for the first time we're like truly seeing Itadori break. Like
break, and also because I feel like we seen him break one time also. Not break essentially, but more like, remember when he died the first time against like the special grade curse?
Yeah, in the like institution with
Yeah.
the prisoners or whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think he, if I remember correctly, he was scared, but it wasn't as bad as this because he, multiple people, like,
Died. No.
yeah.
Well, and I think that's kind of the main difference here is you're having this really big confrontation of him with his own decision to live. And one of the things that I guess I kind of wanted to talk about that I thought was really interesting is what we're seeing right here is Mahito is basically solidifying his identity right now. He even says, like, in this chapter, oh, I want to recreate that feeling. I feel like I can feel my soul. And that's on one of the later pages. But then meanwhile, Itadori is like breaking down and kind of like losing his existence because he doesn't know what to do anymore, right?
Basically, his soul's getting crushed.
Sukuna killed all these people. I couldn't do anything. He even literally says, like, I'm nothing but a murderer, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's so cool to have that parallel where your main villain is finally coming into themselves as a villain, but your hero is like on his breaking point, and he doesn't know where to go, and he doesn't know what to do.
That is true. And then obviously, like, after he's about to strike him, you see Toto with his, I guess, do they even have a name for his room technique essentially? I forgot what's it called.
Oh, just the clap? No,
Yeah.
like this curse technique? No, I don't think there's an exact name for it, no, but like, yeah, his clap that moves things, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's absolutely crazy.
Like the quick shock when he changes with Packshort guy, and then like he actually changes him with the guy who's healing, or he came with, and then he right back, and then he kicked him again. So he's trying to like mix it up. It's just these action panels. I just really enjoy and like love. Like even from like the dynamic angle, like in like page like 9, I want to say, like the last one on the where you see like it's kind of like a Dutch angle when you look at movies.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the panel right now. I feel you. No, and that's a good point, and I think that's something that's been pretty consistent throughout this entire series. Is the action is just crazily well choreographed, and it's not in a lot of other series where you can kind of lose sight of what's going on in a panel because there's just so much chaos going down. If I had $1 for every time I'm reading One Piece or I'm reading My Hero, and I kind of lose track of what's going on with a character.
Definitely, at least the first time. At least the first time reading, yeah, and you're like, oh, okay, like that's what happened.
Precisely, but I don't think that ever kind of happens in Jujutsu. I think there's always a very clear, 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of thing. Like, this is how this got to this situation.
The paneling is like structured really well when it comes to fight scenes.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly it, right? Is there's no wasted. That's actually maybe what I'd say. There's no wasted panels. It's all very deliberate. It's very choreographed, and that's something that I don't think. I think it's too broad to say. I don't think a lot of artists focus on that, but I think it's a point of focus for him in particular, where it's just like, okay, I'm going to hammer home the action scenes at all point and create a very structured fight versus, I guess, kind of the maybe spontaneous or randomness that you'll find in some other mangas of this shonen nature.
Yeah. No, I agree. And then we like cut to the next page. And did you say you wanted to talk about something with Toto? I guess was it this part with his speech with Yuji?
So,
or is it coming?
It's on page 14 actually, and that's cool for a transition. And I love it, man. And I think this is probably one of, I don't know, it just stands out to me because I can't think of a lot of other instances where I've seen it. But basically, so at the page 14. And maybe we can, I don't know, we'll have to figure out the rights and stuff, but maybe we can take a screenshot of that and get it into the video. But basically, page 14, there's just that clap right in between the top panel and the next two. And it's crazy, man, because he doesn't need to actually illustrate a full panel for it.
Yeah.
And then to make you understand, like, what happened. It's like, okay, know when Toto claps that there's
something switch places. Yeah.
Exactly.
so he gives you what happened, and then without breaking up the action, he
Like,
just sticks that hand clapping motion in the middle of everything, and then the next panel is instantly the switch. So you know how the transition happened because you know the ability and you know where like the positioning of the characters and everything, and it's so seamless. It doesn't interrupt the action.
No.
It's just perfectly there, and I can't think of, like, to be honest, any other instances where I've seen something like that, where it's not intrusive, it's just perfectly blended in with all of the other aspects of the art to give you the dynamicism, oh my god,
That's okay.
the dynamicism of the scene without, like, being any, like, it's not breaking it up. It's crazily good, man. If you have any other instances that you can think of, but I got nothing. That's just kind of, like, so cool to me.
Yeah, that's cool. Also, even before the fight started, so you think she's alive?
Yeah, I do actually, and I think there's two reasons for that. So the first is they kind of hint at it, I guess, when the healer goes to run off, and he's like, just so you know, like, it's not a 0% chance that she's dead.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of gets
No, I think he
doubled
said
down.
it's not a 0% chance. So please don't get your hopes up. So.
Well, it's a mix though, right? It's kind of like a double negative.
Yeah.
Because when he originally comes in, he's like, I'm pretty sure she's dead. But then there, he's kind of like, well, it's not 100% chance that she's dead. It's like, you know, like, don't get your hopes up, but she maybe just pulls through. And I think the other kind of maybe solidifying factor of her possibly not being dead is the final panel, or sorry, the final two pages.
Oh, okay.
Where you only see Itadori and Nanami, and he's commenting on how I'll be sure to take on your share of the suffering too. I think if Kugisaki was also in that panel, I think that would be an indicator that she was also dead.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think the fact that it's just the two of them is kind of saying, hey, like, she's not gone just yet. I think that's kind of where it's going, to be honest.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, and it's actually kind of funny. When even the page before that, on page I think it was like 20. It's just the splash page. When he does the black flash. Yeah, I think isn't that the first time we see him do it by himself? Because the other time was when he did with what's her name? I can never pronounce her name properly. The girl. When they faced against. Yeah, Kugisaki.
No, so the first time he actually does it is it's in the forest against the it's funny, him and Toto always have these moments, it seems, where Toto comes into the rescue because when they were in the forest, right? He showed up and he came, and that was I think that was probably Itadori's first instance of the Black Flash.
Yeah.
And then I think the second one is
against when the brothers,
like, highway road.
Yeah, against the
brothers.
Yeah, the Womb brothers or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's the comparison made of, like, a sports player being in the zone, and you can keep using the Black Flash if you get into that zone and just, like, focus on it, keep going. So yeah, no, and that's kind of interesting too. I feel what you mean in terms of, you know, it always seems to be right at these moments where he's able to kind of get it, and it seems like the appropriate moment for him to be able to do it.
Yeah. And it's actually pretty incredible. Like, this is, I want to say 23 pages. Yeah, it's 23 pages chapter, and it's long enough where, like, Toto has his speech with Yuji, and where there's the action, and then we're like, okay, you know what? I gotta get up, you know, like, suck it up, and deal with what I gotta deal with in front of me.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. Yeah, exactly, right? And it's kind of funny because it doesn't feel forced, and I think actually that has to do a lot with the pacing of the previous chapter, where he's kind of just getting wailed on, to be honest with you, because at the beginning of the first chapter, of the previous chapter, we get the flashback with Itadori, Fushiguro, and Kugisaki. Jeez Louise, there we go. And they have that flashback, and then for the rest of that chapter, he's focusing on his negativity, he's feeling down, he's getting beat up, and then it's a perfect transition in this because, you know, Toto comes in, addresses his fears, doesn't get pounded on by Mahito, and then basically says to him, like, hey, you know, you got to kind of suck it up. we have to be able to get through these kinds of instances because we go beyond just about everything else. We're the ones who have to like carry the suffering, and it just goes to show, I guess, kind of the difference between. Because Toto's a third year, isn't he? He's certainly a second year, maybe a third year.
He's I believe he's a third year.
Third year, yeah. So it just goes to show that a couple extra years of experience go a long way.
What the part that really got me was when you see him charging up his attack, and he remembers what Naname says, where you got it from here before he, kicked the bucket right before. So he still remembers that, and remember, you're supposed to he still says something. He said something where he doesn't want him to become a curse or make him feel regret and all that stuff because that's
burdened. Yeah, and in our conversations, that we've had around the series before that, you pointed that out as well, where curses are brought on by negative emotions, right? Strife, grief, and all these different types of things, and Jujutsu sorcerers are arguably probably the most potential curses out there because A, you've got negative energy that's powering all of their abilities, and B, they carry so much
burden
of all these negative emotions. So
but they can't even show they can't even express that emotions. They can't even not express it, but more they need to maintain it, because if they do, then it'll become a curse. That the thing that they're fighting, the thing that they're very
exactly. Their own emotions have the ability to kind of turn against them, exactly. And as we've talked about previously, you pointing out just he had to kind of find the perfect words.
Yes.
To not be it's your fault I died, or I took on too much, I couldn't do this. Just you got it from here is kind of it's very
a perfect send off, and patch the torch, and
that's literally exactly what I was gonna say.
Don't worry about it. You got this. Essentially, actually, that's what.
For me, it's very reminiscent of in My Hero when the All Might and All For One fight was going down.
And at the end, where
All Might has that big dramatic point where he says, you guys are you're next kind of thing.
Yeah.
And of course, it's more specifically towards Deku. But same idea kind of here, where it's I need you to pick up where I left off because I can't keep going.
Yeah, of course. And this chapter was great. We see Toto being a big brother to his fake brother, essentially.
They've been friends for years. And all that type of stuff.
They went to middle school together and everything. Yeah, but I don't know what the next chapter. I mean, the next chapter we're definitely gonna see some cool fight scenes. I do wonder in a few chapters we will see. I think we'll see a total backstory, or at least a half a page of or half a chapter of a backstory. Because why would
you mean Kugisaki 2 or 3 ago?
Yeah, where why would they show? That was an interesting color spread where you see him get shot essentially, or scarred up. So maybe we actually will see how he gets that scar. Just I don't know why it'll come to the structure, but yeah.
What'd be kind of interesting to me if it's kind of because for the most part it seems that the main cast / the immediate side cast, they all have families that are intertwined within the Jujutsu world already. Obviously, especially Fushiguro, right? But it would be interesting to me if that shot in that scene has to do with his own family, and maybe a sister or a loved one or something was cursed and ended up doing that, and that's how he got that scar, and that's kind of his burden to bear, because maybe he had to kind of kill somebody close to him because they had been cursed.
That could be. I mean, there's probably a reason why he makes up these fake memories, and I mean, I don't want to say
maybe that's his way of coping.
You know what? You're not wrong, because if he did, then again his grief will become curses. So I think that's his. You know what? You're not wrong. And Gojo said, you have to be a little crazy to be a sorcerer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're seeing here for sure as well. Another kind of interesting thing, actually, that I kind of wanted to touch on that's really kind of cool.
Yeah.
It kind of ties back a little bit to Itadori kind of, floundering on his beliefs while Mahito's solidifying his identity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the idea that they both kind of don't necessarily kind of mean by that is like Itadori never had like an intention to be a jujutsu sorcerer.
Of course not. Not until he got plunged into the world.
Forced on him due
Yeah.
to
The
the
circumstances,
situation with
yep.
the finger. Exactly. But meanwhile, you have a curse who it doesn't choose to exist. It just comes into existence.
Yeah.
And kind of develops, and there's kind of that interesting parallel between them as well, because you've got like this thing that just came into existence, wants to solidify its existence, and is causing mayhem and destruction to find that. Meanwhile, you've got Itadori on like the opposite side of the card, who again, he didn't really want this, but he's taken that burden,
Yeah.
and he's trying to again like navigate that space in the same way, but from a positive standpoint. So it's kind of just interesting how well written these characters are from like a parallel and an intertwined perspective, because they've got kind of so much going on, but on different fronts, right? And even earlier in the story, they kind of had that they had like a weird friendship triangle going on with oh my god, I can't even remember his name because it was like 60 plus chapters ago now, but the jellyfish guy.
Oh yes, yes.
Where like Mahito was sitting there telling him like, oh, jujutsu sorcerers are like bad people. He was like manipulating them, but then you had Itadori on the other side who's like, hey, like we can be friends. Like I want to help you. Oh, you can see curses. Like I understand the stress of that kind of thing. They've always got these kind of
I guess like identities or like kind of they're just grow upon, I guess, if you want to say that.
Yeah, well, yeah, and even more so, I think when you kind of look at Nanamine, where in a weird way, Nanamine was a tutor to Mahito, because if you actually look back at their fight history, it's in all of his fights against one another that Mahito ends up developing.
That is true.
Because if I remember correctly, his first what do you call it?
Encounter? Well, it's because I do remember when they Nanami, I mean not Nanami, the Patchwork guy, he was like testing his powers on humans. That's when we really see it.
Sorry, so that for sure, because I think that's the very first instance.
And then he was developing, like his powers kept developing while the fight was going on. I mean, even now, like we see, like when this fight started, like he could duplicate himself now. Before where he could just like modify his body, but now we see him more differently.
Yeah, with a full clone. Yeah. And actually the instance that I was thinking of was the domain expansion. That was the term I was forgetting.
Right.
I'm pretty sure it's against Nanamine. That's the very first time you see that domain expansion. And then similarly, Nanamine is like teaching Itadori like how to do the Black Flash, basically how to be a jujutsu sorcerer and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So again, it just kind of all ties into this idea that they've got these very interwoven narratives and characters within their lives that are having kind of like almost parallel relationships, and I find that really interesting just from like a writing and a story perspective.
So I got two more questions before we basically done with our review. Do you think Toto has a domain expansion?
That is crazy.
Just to think about.
That is, the first thing that comes to mind for me for what it could be is similarly to Trafalgar Law from One Piece's room.
Yeah, on a bigger scale.
When he expands it, right, he can just swap anything on a dime, like he doesn't have to worry about it. I would assume, I guess, that Toto has kind of something similar. That's the only thing.
Instead of himself, it's like objects.
The other thing is, sorry.
Instead of himself, is more like objects, or maybe like it's just bigger, because he can only move people, and and I think only two at a time.
Small things, yeah.
And only like two at a time, essentially, like just two things.
Yeah, I think. Oh, so maybe that's it. Maybe he can. Yeah, maybe that's actually the domain expansion, where it's an exchange of multiple things. So it doesn't. Yeah, because as far as we've seen it, it's always been on like a one-by-one basis. So yeah, maybe that opens up the ability to do more.
I'm calling it right now. I think Toto, one of his hands is gonna get cut off.
Could you imagine? I hope not.
And then you know what?
And then Mahito in order to like make the fight like crazy. That's possible.
Yeah, I think one of his hands is gonna cut off, but he can still use his powers because he's gonna like slap. He's gonna make a slap like against his knee. You know what I mean? Like when you're like, yeah. So his powers could still work, But yeah, I think that's gonna be interesting because and also how many when is the Shibuya incident gonna be over? Because we're up to part 44.
Yeah, which is crazy if you actually think about it.
I think it'll end around part maybe 66.
You know what's funny? I was gonna say 60. I was thinking something in that range.
Yeah.
Because I feel like this fight alone will have to be like another 3 chapters ish. But then we're still working on things like the identity of that weird cursed object that's taken over Gojo's best friend.
Yeah.
Right? The guy living in that weird thing that's like living in his brain. We've got to resolve like Gojo getting out of the prison. There's also the matter of didn't that crazy person survive? Remember the really nutty person who had the sword and she ended up almost getting obliterated by Sukuna when he had come out of Itadori? Didn't that person end up like randomly stabbing one of the execs that were keeping up the
well, no, he did die. I know what you're talking about. He looks like he has long hair covering one eye.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, he died. Remember, because he never knew his power until it was luck, until he got killed because his luck ran out.
Oh, you're right. That did get cleared up. My bad.
Because we were like, what is this guy? He just has like a sword and then we don't like, he doesn't like the narrator, saying like, oh, his power is this, but he doesn't know it. And like that's why he always got out of every situation. But eventually your luck does run out.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. No, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover. I'm just doing a quick scroll back through the pages to kind of.
I think it's a great chapter.
See if there's anything I missed.
Chapter 127. I think it was great. I'm excited for Shibuya part 45. But yeah, I'm excited for the next one. Let's see what's to come. I think it'll probably end like around 60. And is this the last arc? I don't know. It's a heavy war arc essentially, if you want to call it that. A very like heavy battle, like yeah, it's a battle arc. You got part 44. That's basically 4. That's 4 volumes. So.
Yeah, well, I was gonna, because we've been honestly, it's been almost, I guess, a full year that we've been dealing with just the Shibuya incident.
Okay.
So it's definitely gonna be interesting to see how longer this is gonna go. I don't think it'll be the last arc. I think there's still a few too many unanswered questions.
Yeah.
Especially with in this arc only it having been revealed that there's like a cursed object in that one guy. So yeah, I agree though. Great chapter. Really looking forward to this week because the Todo and Itadori fights so far have all been fantastic. So
nice.
Yeah, we'll have to see how it goes, man.
Awesome, man. Cool. And then that is it. And then I'll just stop it right there so I know. Come on. Oh, right.